You are listening to the And I Quote podcast, brought to you by Coterie Insurance. And I Quote was on a mission to share the importance of building relationships in the insurance industry. Through conversations with insurance agents and industry leaders, Coterie is bringing you episodes focused on relevant and trending topics.
Well, welcome to the And I Quote podcast. I'm one of the hosts, Ashleigh Burden of Coterie Insurance, and I'm really excited to talk to our guest today. He's actually a repeat guest, but I'm excited to dive a little bit deeper into his story, and it's Alex Dopazo. Alex is the Vice President of Dopozo Insurance. He's based out of Miami, Florida, and he's been working with Coterie for some time now, so really excited to re-welcome you to the podcast, Alex. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me on again. I must have done something, I was like, well, did I do something wrong? Oh, no, wait, I must have done something right.
Something right. Totally. And you've been a great partner to Coterie. So thank you for that as well. So welcome. And then if you don't mind giving our audience just a refresher, obviously you're really, active on social media on LinkedIn, but we'd love for our audience to give them an intro to you and what you're doing and how you made your way into the industry.
Like most stories, I didn't grow up wanting to be an insurance agent, though I'm now very proud trying to spread the love of what insurance can do for a lifetime and a career. So I'm always trying to work with local colleges and things like that to spread that message. But no, my dad needed free labor. That's basically how I'm a good Cuban son. So when he opened an agency, because his prior business had gone, unfortunately, the way of the dodo. Literally, it's just one of those business models that no longer worked because of the changing evolution of time. And, he had never worked for anybody else. So he decided to open an agency. A little bit after that, he needed someone to answer calls in order for him to go out on business calls. And you have to be licensed in the state of Florida to be able to do so. So he asked me, hey, if you don't mind getting me over this hump, if you don't like working with dad, you have a job someplace else. So I got my license and started working with him. That was 26 years ago. And we've been doing it together ever since. And so we've been very blessed to have a lot of successes and make a lot of errors. And through that process, we've been able to, I was talking to somebody today, our growth is slow, but our growth is steady. And that's the magic of what we do for a living, that it is steady and gives us opportunities to get to points where we no longer have to be, not hungry. I wouldn't say, we're still pretty hungry, but we don't have to be chasing everything every moment. Right. So
yeah, which is a great feeling, I'm sure. Well, congratulations on that success too. I mean, I think there's the longevity in the industry. It's always cool, when you hear different stories of the path to insurance. You were somewhat born into it, which is very cool.
Well, right. Just about people ask me, oh, hey, what else do you know how to do? I'm like, nothing. This is, if insurance is, I know it goes away, I am in deep trouble.
Yeah, you and me both. So, but no, I love that you shared that too about just your path to the industry. And so if you think back, obviously, kind of coming into it from the family, but obviously you sort of had to start making, your own strides and understanding the industry. And so with that came with where you are today with having this great network. So what steps did you really take to start building a network when you first started out in the insurance space?
Well, desperation is a great motivator. I think that, I think it's an underestimated motivator sometimes. People are always trying to find a life hack and, just sometimes doing the thing, right? So I will say I had the advantage of not having any industry experience, my father not having any industry experience. So when I would walk into rooms, I had either asked for help and start building community or die, right? And so it was kind of a necessity when we opened the agency for me to join groups and go into those groups with, humility and be saying, hey, I'm here to learn, and then eventually build what would become, the path that Dopozo Insurance takes in order to help their customers, right? Along the way, there were some ups, there were some downs, but I can say that I have been extremely fortunate to be in rooms with people that have helped us push forward. And I say us because my dad would agree with that wholeheartedly. Our business would not be today if it wasn't for the people who we made community with and who took us along. And so I will say that there's extreme value of building that community. And you never know where that help is going to come from. Yeah. So just constantly being open, humble, and, asking for help when you need it, and giving back as much as you can once you've received it. Right. So, I found that 90% of our industry is showing up. I stick my nose where it doesn't belong all the time.
I love that. That's great. I mean, I think that's a great multiple pieces of advice in what you just said, and especially I think for those who maybe are just starting out in the industry, of really, kind of not being afraid to put yourself out there a little bit, right? Like you said, like putting yourself where you some might say you don't belong, but then using that to expand your reach. So I think it's awesome that that's something that you've modeled. And then within like your local community, I know you do a ton. Like, how do you identify just opportunities to expand your reach and just really just getting to know your community? How do you do that?
Well, I look for things that kind of go with the culture of our agency. So one, I understand what the culture of my business is, right? And so did I know that day one? Absolutely not. No, that was an evolution, and I would say still an evolution going forward, right? But I understand where my agency has a lot of strengths, what that culture feels like. So it is easy for me to go into other spaces and be like, hey, this is what I bring to the table. This is the value I bring to this conversation. How can I give? How can I, lift you up in what you're doing? And then the only natural response people have to that is generally to help you back, right? And so when I go into places, education, understanding insurance, simplicity, helping people make better decisions around their businesses are all part of the culture of who Dopozo Insurance is. So whether I'm introducing them to an attorney who's helping them review contracts, or a CPA to help them understand something or another, or just giving them a good piece of advice, like you need a realtor, don't try to do this on your own. You feel comfortable in spaces that before seemed a little, scary, because you go in and you're alone and you don't know anybody. But the moment you start giving, and the moment you start showing up, understanding what your value is and presenting that, people naturally respond to it.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And I think especially in like the, small business space, it's, a lot of small business owners, especially if they're a first time small business owner, or they're just kind of getting, their feet wet. It's one of those things that relying on you as a trusted source will take them a long way, and it'll really create that solidified partnership. So I love that you touch on that. And then when you think about, like, again, small businesses specifically, they do kind of have those unique needs that you touched on before, whether it's a CPA or a realtor or something like that. How do you get to know your clients in a way where you can truly understand what their needs are and kind of tailor your services to that?
We ask a ton of questions. Like people are always like, no, they want a quote in 5 minutes. Yes, that is correct. But they would prefer a 10-minute question session that gives them the quote in one shot than they would, hey, here's a quote. Oh, wait, no, that doesn't fit. Oh, hey, here's a quote. No, wait, that doesn't fit. So when you reach anything about Dopozo Insurance, you're going to hear a lot of education. You're going to see our online intake forms have a lot of questions. We train our staff here when those questions come in via phone, how to lead them through those problems, and then give them explanations as to the why we're asking the question. Because a lot of times it feels arbitrary and they don't know, right? Like a lot of people don't understand how insurance gets rated. A lot of people don't understand why, hey, if I'm the tenant, why does the age of the roof matter? So when we start to explain some of those things, eventually you just get trust. And when you ask the question, you just get the answer. Because they realize that none of the questions you're asking are arbitrary. They're literally all intended to help them make a better decision and better understand the risk tolerance and what they're willing to take on, what they don't want to take on, what they want to offset, and what maybe can't be insured. And providing resources for that, maybe not through my own business, but saying, hey, this is really a conversation you should be having with your attorney. And they better understand how that insurance is going to work. And then when the claim happens, even when it's not covered, we've been blessed that people at least understood the expectation was met, right? So they're like, hey, this was a risk I took on and it wasn't covered. Or the opposite, which is really what we all like. It's like, hey, I'm really glad I asked that question, and I really took Alex's advice and added that coverage, because now I'm seeing the benefit of that, right? And so, it's meeting that expectation, setting it from day one, from all of our social media outreach, all of that initial conversations. Like that culture is ingrained in everything, and all of our media, all of our telephone calls, how we train our staff, they're always built around that. So thankfully, that helps build community, versus just a relationship of a transactional sale.
Yeah, which is awesome. I think that really lends itself again, like building that trust. It's, your clients can then see you as not only a trusted expert, but someone that they can rely on, right? Like you said, even in the claims experience, which no one wants to go through that, but at least they can trust, that you've provided the best, service to them and the best coverage for their business. So I think that is incredible that's, something that you ingrained throughout the agency. And so really thinking about that, I mean, giving advice to our audience, like if someone is, whether they're building their agency or they're maybe even established, but looking to kind of have those long-standing trusted relationships, what would you recommend that they do in order to kind of not only make those connections, but then also make sure that they're serving their clients in the best way?
Well, you got to get out there, right? So, like I said, 90% of it is showing up.
Yeah.
So if you're not a part of your community organizations, you need to find one that fits your culture. You may have to try a few before you find one, but get in there and start developing those skills, right? Get out there, just have conversations, present yourself as a person who's willing to provide, to help people through a process. I can't tell you how many commercial bankers I've sat with just to explain to them how insurance works, simply so that they can provide a better experience for their customers. And then obviously with that, every so often I get, a nice referral. And so, being that person, being that in your community, being that first top of mind individual is what makes one agent different than the other. Products are available everywhere, different products in different places. Florida, like I like to joke around, is where insurance comes to die. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of need here. A lot of small businesses don't have a group of individuals that they can reach out to. And so their agent ends up being a portal to a lot of that. Some of that they're going to like, some of that they're not going to like, but the better connections you have, the better community that you build, the more that you're seen as that trusted person, and the easier those relationships are.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And I think, again, it really taps into, again, building those relationships from the ground up. And I love the example of, like, you said, sitting with the banker, explaining to them how insurance works, because one might assume that they might know, but that begin like taking that time to do that, not only does that solidify your partnership with that banker, but then again extends relationships for you with their potential clients. So I think it's a whole ecosystem, really. I think is what it sounds like you're building. Which I think
100%. It is literally, as opposed to trying to go after niches are really cool things and really great. But as the industry changes, niches come and go, right? So if you're not prepared to shift them, it's a whole other model. But for an agency like mine, whose smallest customer is a hot dog cart vendor, and my largest customer is building one of the largest seafront condos in the country, you have to be prepared to have a community, a group of people, and the really cool thing about what we do for a living is there's no right or wrong way to do that, right? I've talked about maybe some chambers and things like that, but let's pretend that you really enjoy nonprofits, right? So are you volunteering at a nonprofit? Are you involved with a nonprofit? Is your business showing itself up at that particular business? But the more you're involved, the more likely that you're going to build community, and the more community that you build, well, the more type of like individuals or businesses you're going to start attracting to you. And it provides a lot of things. It provides practice, it provides relationships, it provides referrals, it provides a whole lot of options. This is a business. We can do it any way we want. We just want to make sure we have our end goal in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great advice. I want to switch gears just a little bit to think about technology, right? So obviously, Coterie you've been a partner of ours for some time, and when you think about the technology side of things, so partners like Coterie, how does that help you build trust and credibility?
Well, because again, it's meeting expectations. So if I have a customer who needs something in a very short period of time, and I'm able to provide that. Now, that's not the same for everybody, right? Because Coterie's a great company and I love your products, but not everybody fits into the Coterie brand,
Absolutely.
Right? So getting accustomed to what that looks like and making sure that I'm setting that expectation up early makes a huge difference. Because if I can literally bind that policy before the end of a phone call and solve a problem that they were having in a matter of hours instead of days, I've set up I've created that value going forward. The importance is, of course, from a business perspective is, hey, this is not going to be your experience with everything, right? So let's make sure that everyone's aware, but the better technology that we have as an agency to more quickly service that business, the better our customers are going to feel, because we're not setting the expectation of what that transaction should look like, right? Forget the relationship for a second. Technology is about transactions. So if we're looking at what that transaction should look like, our competition is Peloton, Amazon, Target. This is what people are expecting from a transactional business perspective. So if we're not meeting that need, or at least creating a process that says, hey, yes, in this circumstance, no, in that one, and so on and so forth, we're doing them a disservice, because that's how negative Google reviews show up. Right? Is because they thought one thing, another thing happened, and that was the result. So having partners like Coterie that give them access to make their payments online, to pay with a credit card, to be able to issue certificates of insurance in a relatively simple format, those types of things for certain customers are paramount. And so having a partner that allows us to do that helps us meet that need.
That's awesome. And, and I think you make a great point. We're not going to be a fit for everyone, but for those clients who, again, need that coverage that's simple, they can, really understand, and you, like you said, that they need a policy by the end of day today. And that, Coterie is a fit for them, and you can meet them in those needs.
It's a shorter path from A to B. And at the end of the day, helps take what might be considered non-profitable business and turn it into profitable business. Because if I don't have to have 4 different people touch it in order to get it into my management system, if I don't have to wait for declarations pages, if I don't have to X, Y, or Z, all of a sudden something that most agencies might say, well, no, I can't, I'm just not going to make any money off of this, becomes, hey, I actually did make money off of this because it was a single transaction. So for some of that business that you might be turning away, you might have access to some additional, profit, where places that you were just saying no before, you could say yes a little bit more, which again helps your community stance, right? The more you're willing to help people who are in those difficult situations, the more you're looked at as an individual who wants to help.
Yeah, then that's huge, right? And that's at the core of what we do, in this industry. So I want to switch to a little bit of a different topic and thinking about success, right? So we talked a lot about your efforts in the community, and obviously your business strategies. So then how do you take that and measure success? How do you measure success, whether that's not necessarily from a business standpoint, but from that networking and community engagement standpoint?
At the end of the day, I consider success every time I have a new relationship built, right? And every time that those expectations are met. Because, if I'm going to a networking event and I don't have to introduce myself, believe it or not, even if I'm the second time on this podcast, I'm more of an introvert than I am an extrovert. I just realized that extroverts make more money than introverts do. Right? So you have to develop certain skills to kind of get you through the game. But some of what we've been able to do has created opportunities where, like, for instance, my media content. A lot of times if I'm going to a networking event and it's like a outside of the industry event, I don't always introduce myself. Usually the person that's with me does it because they're like, hey, have you met Alex? He's online and he's doing X, Y, or Z. And that is such a much easier conversation to have than, hey, I'm your local insurance agent. Can I have a copy of your declarations page? So it creates opportunities. Every time that happens and it starts to happen more and more and more, I consider that a success, because it shows that it shows that culture I'm trying to portray is being received and replicated and over and over and over again. Once we start having our staff do the same thing, then it can start to become something a little bit bigger.
Yeah, 100%. I love that authenticity that you bring to that, because I think it does, like, your relationships in the community that you've built will speak volumes for you more than you can for yourself, right? And I think it's incredible that is the case with you. Like, your, just your reputation and just your involvement in the community is definitely something that I think is well known. So thinking about, those, we talked about like the networking strategies, but then always there's like feedback. So how do you kind of gather feedback, whether that's like, just from customer experience or just overall about like the perception of your agency? What are some things that you do with the feedback that you receive?
Well, so we meet as a team for lunch once every 2 weeks. And during that, we're sharing that feedback amongst each other. So I can't always be aware of the feedback someone had trying to make a payment online or trying to get a certificate of insurance through our online portal, but my staff does, right? Because they'll hear hey, X didn't work or Y didn't work or so on and so forth. And so what we do is, as a team, we sit down and we have the conversations about that feedback and we interact, we talk to each other. Hey, what do you think would be a good solution for this? I have ideas, but just because my ideas are the ones here, that's my worldview is, well, just mine. I'm limited literally, but what I know and what my experience is, which at this point is a 26-year veteran of being a business owner, which is a very different experience from a Gen Z individual opening their first business and it's a side hustle for something else. So if I limit it to what I know, I'm doing them a disservice and myself. So my staff, actually, we talk out, hey, what if we did this? What if we did that? Do you think this would be a good solution for the problem? Do you believe that this will be well received? And then test, hey, we're going to try doing it this way, try doing it that way, and adjust as time goes on to be able to better provide that service that customer, or meet that expectation the customer is looking for. So you have to look at that decision holistically, and then helping our customers make those insurance decisions holistically actually helps them make their business decisions more holistically. They start to think about, should I just sign this lease or should I have an attorney review it? Because that small expense at the beginning of a lease can save thousands of dollars on when trying to terminate one. And so they start to think about the world in a risk mitigation perspective and an ebb and flow versus a direct transaction. I need insurance. Here's my credit card. Give me the thing.
Yep. And I think that's huge. And I love that you take that collaborative approach with feedback and kind of reviewing that with your team, because again, you could be looking at it maybe from a top down approach where it's like, okay, here's the feedback, here's what we're going to do. But really having that team approach, I think it probably creates more effective strategies for addressing feedback, whether on the positive or the negative side, right? I want to kind of end on I always like to just kind of throw a forward thinking, crystal ball type question in there at the end. So with, your 26 years of experience in the industry, where do you think things are going, and what are you most excited about in the industry? I should ask, is really, so the excitement, and then maybe where do you, maybe like a prediction, if you wanted to throw that in there.
Well, I'm not Walter Mercado. If you don't know who that is, Google. But he was a psychic, a Puerto Rican psychic, I'm pretty sure, but very popular amongst Hispanic people for a long time. And the reality is what I'm excited about is, well, all of the change, right? Change is opportunity. If you're running an insurance agency, change feels like a bad thing, but it's actually a fantastic thing. The largest growth my agency has experienced in its 26 years have been during moments of change. Hard markets have been opportunities we've been able to take advantage of. Believe it or not, the fact that our disaster plan worked perfectly for COVID kept us moving at a rate that outpaced our competitors. And so, those changes, you see them as like, oh, and it's a little frustrating because you're having to keep up, right? If you can no longer, I'm getting to that point where it's hard for me to foresee the future, right? Like there was a time where I could see where I would be, but now that constant change feels like, something that's difficult to deal with. Hire people around you who can offset that. So that you're able to consider that and empower them to criticize you. And let you know, hey, I understand why you do X, Y, or Z, but have you thought of why? And so that way you can help solve those problems. And what I see for our industry going forward, right now we're in a difficult spot. Disasters have become a real problem as far as figuring out how the math of our industry works. It is creating a lot of disruption for our customers because there are very few instances of similar experiences. In Florida, for instance, as an example, you could have 5 different carriers, which means 5 different ways of making payments for one particular insurance program, right? That's a problem, right? But there's some really smart people working really hard to solve some of our biggest problems, and that's exciting. That's exciting because we see these opportunities start to present themselves. Solutions will eventually also present themselves that will make our customers' job easier. Most insurance agents, I think, would agree. Most anybody in the industry is empathetic. I don't think I've ever found a non-empathetic insurance person, right? But at the end of the day, what we want to do is solve that problem for our customer. And so as I'm seeing solutions become presented, even though not every solution is an actual solution, it just brings up other problems. It is exciting to see folks tackling them, getting up there and doing something about it and iterating until we get to that point where we can solve that. So we can solve those problems more, where we can say to our customers, yes, quicker,
Okay.
or no, but, a little bit quicker. So I'm excited for all of that going on in our industry, because for a long time, it was my way or the highway. And that's just never a comfortable place
Definitely, yeah.
from which to help other business owners at, right?
Sure. Yeah, 100% agree with that. And I think you make a really great point about the change. It can feel a little scary, a little, apprehensive, but embracing that, I think, is a great thing. And then also looking at that as an opportunity to then, evolve as a business or evolve as, even in your community. So I think that's great that that's something that you're embracing. So thank you. Thank you for joining. And just before we end, I'd love for you to just share all of the ways you're online and interacting and how folks can get in touch with you.
If you type the words Dopazo and insurance anywhere, you will find me. And if you don't find me, go someplace else, look for me, then tell me I didn't find you in X place, because then I will make sure you find me there. So just Dopazo Insurance in your web browser, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, pretty much anywhere that you want, that because being found is the new currency, right? So I try very hard. Just Dopazo Insurance, and hopefully you'll find us.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Alex. It's been great opportunity to have you on the podcast today. We'll talk soon.
Appreciate you.
Thank you for listening to the End I Quote podcast, brought to you by Coterie Insurance. Coterie puts insurance agents and brokers first, delivering instant business insurance across the United States. With an innovative quoting platform that delivers accurate pricing and bindable quotes in less than 1 minute, Coterie is making small business insurance effortless. Learn more about Coterie Insurance by visiting our website, located in the show notes.